Mississippi State beat Texas A&M yesterday, 42-24. This was the most high leverage game in the country yesterday. It's why I'm leading the show off with it. High leverage, as I detailed to you Thursday, because Jimbo Fisher really needed to have this one. It wasn't a must win. He's not getting fired tomorrow because he lost it, but they really, really needed it because now already, before they go play Bama, they're having to hit the reset button on a lot of their goals, on a lot of their expectations. But also, there was, I think, an inordinate amount of unseen pressure on Mike Leach by the nation to win this one. Internally, they made a really, really big deal. The Mississippi State fan base made a really big deal about this game because they had already lost to LSU earlier this year. And as we were coming into this thing last week, remember, a lot of people looked at the spread on this and you were surprised by it. Now, I told you Tuesday, I told you again Thursday, I was surprised that you were surprised, but when you go back to that lie that a lot of people tell themselves, you are what your record says you are. Folks saw Texas A&M beat Arkansas, and that's all they needed to see. And in reality, that's not how this stuff works. That's not how, from this point moving forward, works. That's not how the predictive modeling world of college football and the odds-making world works. So Mississippi State was a favorite of over a field goal as the game kicked off. We took Mississippi State, so we won that one. Let's take a look at the game for a second. There is a padlock stat in this, a big one and a surprise even to me, and I picked State to win the game. But if you tell me Mississippi State is going to run the ball for 6 yards per carry against you, knowing how relatively bad they've been on the ground, and that's not a this year thing. That's pretty much just been what Mike Leach's offenses are. You got to give something to get something from his offense, and that's normally been it. They ran the ball 6 yards per carry, which has been a theme against Texas A&M for pretty much any opponent this year. I went and looked today because I knew they had been average at best. They haven't been even average against the run. They rank 97th. Texas A&M defensively ranks 97th in the country in yards per carry average against. I've got that how on my face look. If you're listening on podcast, I agree with you. So that's the first. And look, this was not a situation, if you didn't watch this game, where State ripped off a 95-yard run and it kind of skewed the yards per carry average. Their longest run of the game was 26 yards. This was as it seems on the surface. They just ran the ball. On A&M, I guarantee you, outside of some very inferior competition down the road, that is as successful as State will be on the ground all year. I venture to think they may have even been a little bit surprised at how successful they were on the ground. Padlock stat number 2, pretty simple. -2 turnovers for Texas A&M. They are not a team, obviously, that can afford that. So Mississippi State wide receivers, I'll tell you what I respected the most. They went back and they looked at that LSU game, and they knew there was not enough fight in that position group. This is not a wide receiver room that's just flush with first-round NFL draft talent. They're good enough, but they got to fight. They got to win contested balls. And they fought against A&M secondary yesterday, and they won some contested balls. And again, you're playing A&M. You don't have to score 45 to win. You got to make a few of those plays. State did. As it turns out, they had plenty of cushion. So we talk about the winners first around here. Good on Mississippi State, and they got Arkansas this week, and if they win that one, they're really off to the races. But as for Texas A&M, I got some good news for you, and I got some bad news for you if you're an A&M fan. Take the good news first. The good news is the problem is clear. You don't have to wonder where the water is coming from, okay? You know where the leak in the boat is. So that's good. At least we have one mystery solved. Here's the really bad news. The captain of the ship seems to be the only person that's not convinced the thing's sinking, that's not convinced that there's a leak anywhere. Now, his feet are wet because there's water all over the place on the floor, but that could be anything. You know, that could be a faulty air conditioner and there's just moisture dripping down off of it. It's working. You know, if everything's operating as it should, this thing will work fine. I got a quote that I need you to look at from Jimbo Fisher's press conference yesterday, because you may have watched the game as a fan and said, after this, there's no way that he can deny any longer that his offense isn't happening. I held up the old milk jug a couple of weeks ago, and it said expired in 2014. I mean, there's no way Jimbo can deny that now, right? Well, here was Jimbo Fisher post-game. Jimbo Fisher on his offensive system, quote, the plays are there and were there. Jimbo Fisher on why it's not working, quote, we're just not executing. I've heard that about 1 million times from him. That's just 1,000,001. this is not a good situation for Texas A&M because it's obvious even to the most common viewer that what they do is not working. What I'm not saying is everyone's capable of out-diagramming and out-scheming Jimbo Fisher on a grease board. You don't have to be a doctor to know an ugly baby when you see one. You just know the baby looks ugly, and you call it like you see it. This offense is ugly. You don't have to be able to necessarily diagram it on a grease board to understand the results are what matter at the end of the day. He and his offense, the thing they're running out there right now, is not delivering results. And so you got one of two options. You can either continue banging your head against a wall every week and telling yourself, you know, if every one of these players does what's written on these pieces of paper, these 47 pieces of paper in front of me, it'll work. And he's right. The thing about it is, and the most maddening part to me has been and always will be, there are about 4 to 6 programs in America where they recruit at such a high level they can choose anything they want to do. They can run any offense they want to run because they can get any kind of athlete with which to do it. At Texas A&M, this is what they're choosing to do with all the options in the world. This is not Service Academy football. They're not being forced to run the option due to lack of options. They can do whatever they want. At Bama, when Nick Saban realized he could do whatever he wants, what they do now is what he decided to do. At Ohio State, they can do whatever they want. That what they're doing, that's what they decide to do. At Texas A&M, this is what they're deciding to do with that kind of talent. Now, the other question that's been asked a whole lot to me and in general from A&M fans is, well, can we fix it this year? No, you can't fix it this year. This requires taking that thing into port, and there are some systemic changes that have to happen from the hull, from the ground up, in other words. No, you can't fix this. It would require overhauling an offense. This is why I told you when Haynes King was getting knocked and everyone said, oh, it's time to go with Max Johnson. That is akin to taking the expired milk and putting a different label on it. It's the same milk. It's just a different label. It's the same offense, guys. It's just Max Johnson, who's playing his heart out. I'll say that about that entire team. You can't knock the effort. You can't knock the competitive spirit, but competing's not enough. You've got to be able to put guys in position to make plays. You've got to be able to take all that talent you have, and you got to be able to properly leverage it. Otherwise, you're just winning recruiting titles for recruiting titles' sake. And even though I know that we work at a company that gives out a mythical trophy for finishing number 1 in recruiting, those things don't matter. That just makes you look more stupid when you can't win with them. So that's where Texas A&M is right now. Now, here's the multi-million-dollar question that will not be answered this week or next week or in October or November, period. Jimbo Fisher's got, I hesitate to use this hyperbolic term, but he's got a fork in the road coming in his career. Jimbo's got a fork in the road coming. It's not going to happen this season, but it's going to happen after the season because it's very, very clear what they do systemically doesn't work. Offensively, it does not work. And that's not even to mention the struggles they've started to have a little bit defensively against the run. But you can chalk that up to just being young. You can chalk that up to just being down on that side of the ball. This is a year-over-year thing offensively. It's not going to get any better because it's not going to change because he sees fit to keep it the way it is. So the multi-million-dollar question is going to be, is Jimbo Fisher a guy willing to either relinquish control of his offense, and I don't think he is, but is he a guy willing to do that, or is he a guy willing to try and reinvent himself philosophically at this stage of his career? That stuff is hard, if not impossible, for most people to do. That's the situation Texas A&M is in. You're going to see a lot of talk about Jimbo Fisher being on the hot seat. He's not on the hot seat right now. You're going to see a lot of talk about boosters pooling money to pay his buyouts. It's ludicrous. That's not the kind of conversation that's happening right now, or at least it's not the real kind of conversation happening. And the other thing that I want to make clear, this is not a program in disarray. This is a Ferrari with flat tires. If you want to see a program in disarray, there are other areas in the SEC West you can look. If you want to find a program in disarray, and maybe some of our younger Texas A&M fans need to learn what a program in disarray really means. This program's fine. This program's actually incredibly strong. The team is bad right now, but team and program are two different things. And the bottom line is, I'll tell you this, if you're an A&M fan and you tell me your program is broken, what do you think would happen if I went and hired Ryan Day or Nick Saban or someone like that to, from January of 2023 on, be the head coach there? How do you think the 2023 Aggie team would look? It would be one of the best teams in the country because they would overhaul philosophically what you do. They would portal in guys at quarterback. They would portal in guys at receiver, and immediately you'd be one of the best teams in the country because all the foundation's already laid. You got incredible infrastructure out there. You got incredible buy-in. You've got everything that you need to win right now. That team's got everything they need to win right now. Almost everything. And the problem is that almost, but not quite enough, you're kind of looking at the top of the pyramid, not the bottom of it. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Make sure you like the video and please subscribe to the channel. Not just for me. That's how we keep this entire thing free.